So the first item tonight is the approval, oh, sorry, before we get started, we have regrets from Trustee Weecock, and we have a regret from Tosh. We need approval of the agenda. Would someone like to move the agenda? Okay, Trustee De Silva, seconded by Trustee Law. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Any declaration of conflict of interest tonight? Okay, seeing none. We have no closed session this evening, so that moves us into presentations and delegations. And the first one is Central County Student Transportation Consortium, and that is with Superintendent Dance and Chief Executive Officer Mr. Godano.
Thank you. And through you, Chair Lloyd, I'd like to invite CEO Godano and his able assistant and administrative leader of the consortium, John Barbado. I understand John's going to navigate PowerPoint, and Michael is going to provide the speaking notes.
Good evening and welcome.
Well, thank you very much for this invitation to join us this evening. And I know there's a lot of new faces here that don't know me. I am Michael Godano. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Central County Student Transportation Consortium. We transport your students as well as the Catholic Core students here in Central County. And I've got a short presentation here for you to tell you about the website and some data about the consortium, and if you have any questions, I'm here to answer any of those that you have. So, first of all, this is our mission statement for the consortium. It's supporting student learning by providing safe and responsive student transportation in partnership with publicly funded schools, families, bus operators, and community. That's what we do. About the consortium, on a daily basis, we service 155 schools, both public and Catholic, in Central County. We transport over 35,000 children every day. We contract over 700 vehicles on their behalf. That includes buses, busettes, vans, and also the wheelchair vehicles too. Those vehicles every day travel 61,000 kilometers. That's 1.5 times around the world. Every day we travel. So right now, I just want to show you our website. There's a lot of good information on there. I'm not sure if you've seen our website yet, but if you do, I highly recommend that you refer to it. So when you go to our website, the first page is a splash page. So you'll see there where we cancel vehicles or zones. So if we have any weather or road conditions that require us to cancel any zones within the county, this is where you'll find out. Also on this page, you can check and see what schools are in the zone, so you can identify, for example, for the North Zone, all the schools there are listed. And so you can check to ensure or to confirm what schools are in each of the zones. Okay. If you go to our home page, which you just have to go in the top left hand corner, that's our home page. This one page changes on a regular basis about what information is pertinent for the time of the year. Right now we have information about bus cancellations. And so it identifies how we cancel school buses and what the criteria is also. Along with this homepage, there are other sections of our website that include all the ones up on the top there about us. If I go to FAQs, we have a number of FAQs that are posted here on the website, and they change as more and more questions come in. They're divided into different sections about eligibility and so on and so forth. And then you can just click on one, and maybe go to the one. So all the information about FAQs are there, so you can answer any of the questions that come up from your constituents or from the schools. Also, on the website, our policies. All our policies are listed on the website. Our policies are always coordinated and will not be in conflict with your policies. But we take our lead from you. And so our policies cannot be in conflict with your policies. Going on to safety programs or other information. Basically, information about all our safety programs is also on the website, so I'll let you have a look at that at your leisure. What I really want to do is go into the interactive portion of the website. We try to promote a self-service model where the parents and the people in the media can actually go to our site and get information about what school that they are to attend, if they're eligible for transportation, and so on and so forth. So that's a little demo. Maybe we can just go to what school. So if you put in any address in Simcoe County, it will identify what school you are in the attachment for. So, for that address, it identifies the school catchment for, in this case, it's Hyde Park. If you want to know if you're eligible for transportation, though, by grade, by program, in this case, at that address for high school, you are eligible for transportation. It will identify that you are, and that you should contact your school to get your transportation information. Now, for that same address for elementary school, you are not eligible for transportation. And what this also does, it identifies the walk path that's been determined about the distance you are to the school. Okay? And there's one more part of this too, that if you're a French immersion student at this address, it will identify that you are eligible for transportation, but you will, in this case, work. Okay? Also on our website, you can identify any delays that occur in the morning or afternoon. So when you click on the list, then we actually have some screenshots here because our system resets after a couple hours after school ends. So this is from yesterday. There were 3 delays, and anybody that accesses the website will be able to identify any delays on the website. You can filter by school, and so if there were many delays, you can actually, as a school principal, identify what delays are for your school. That being said, you can also subscribe to receive any delay notifications for your school or for your route. In fact, we provide each school principal and the school secretaries emails of all delays to their school, so they receive an email identifying if there are any delays of buses to their school. If a parent or anybody else in the public wants to subscribe to identify if there was a delay for their bus, their specific route, they can subscribe for that information. And when they do so, they will get an email identifying that bus, in this case to Agila, has been delayed 15 minutes. So as a parent or as a school teacher or anybody else that is interested, student as well, they can get emails to their iPhone or to their computer that identifies if there is a delay to their school vehicle. We also have Twitter. We have almost 2,700 members, followers of our Twitter account, and we also post all the latest cancellation to our Twitter account also. So, for example, this past Monday, we did cancel the Central and the South zones, so that we're on Twitter as such. We also update our Twitter feed with information about school transportation here in Central County, and of course tweet that out on a regular basis. And that's basically it for our website. Are there any questions with respect to our website or any questions about the consortium? We do have other screens that we could show you with respect to other information, but I know your time is valuable, and I do respect that.
Okay, Trustee Armstrong, please.
Thank you, through you, Chair, to Mr. Gann. The history of the consortium, I don't know if everyone knows what year the consortium formed, and I believe at one time, separate board and public board formed it, but also the separate French or separate French English board was also using transportation from this consortium. And also, one other part of it, the employees of the consortium consisted, I think, of the public boards and separate boards. Now I think they're the employees of the consortium. They're not board employees. So just talk a little bit about the historical context.
Yes, so actually we do have a small 2-minute presentation of that also, about the governance and history of the consortium.
I'm sorry.
It's a minute, really. So the consortium has 11 full-time staff, and I report to the board of directors and of the consortium. And that board of directors are 6 people, 3 from each school board. There's I work with the executive committee of the consortium, and those are the 2 SOs of the respective school boards. And for the school board, it's superintendent Dance. Our structure and governance also has our corporate officers as such, where we have a chair and president, who's an SO, and also a secretary who's the procurement board SO. Every year they switch those roles, and the vice chair of the board is a trustee of the procurement board of the president. So to answer your question about the brief history of the consortium, basically the whole idea started in 1999, where the Ministry of Education basically approved a business plan for the consortium. In 2001, the transportation staff of both school boards came together under one department. And that's when they had their first board of directors meeting. In 2002, it was incorporated, and that September, the consortium they negotiated the first contract for both school boards. And one of the reasons to create the consortium was to create efficiencies where buses could be shared, for example, for a first run for 8 o'clock start for high school for the public board, and then 9 o'clock start for an elementary school for the Catholic board, or vice versa. So just skipping forward about 5 years, in 2007, there was some governance work done for the conventional agreement bylaws. And also, that was the year that the French boards actually created their own consortium called Francobus. So many of the French boards in the province are serviced by Francobus and are relevant. 2 years later, there was a review of the consortium where the consortium received a moderate low ranking from the Ministry of Education. I was hired a year later to, among other things, address that issue. In April of the following year, the 3 boards, this board, the Catholic School Board, as well as the Consortium Board of Directors, approved the transition of the staff over to the consortium, and that was the year that we actually did the reorganization and became an independent legal entity. And then our website, which I just showed you, was launched. We have a new room software, which was, again, just the demo here. We also did RFPs, and now we're contracted with the bus operators for better terms. And in 2013, we had a review and we received a high from the Ministry of Education. Of the 33 consortiums in the province, we are one of 17 at the high rating. And that's basically the kind of simple history of the organization. Are there any questions or?
Any other questions for Mr. Cordano? Yes, Superintendent, or Trustee Gardner.
Thank you, and through the chair. I'm just looking online under the how school vehicle cancellations are determined, and it says there's an assessment of road and weather conditions are reviewed during a 5:30 a.m. conference call between the SCDSB and school vehicle operators. And I was just wondering how many school vehicle operators are involved in the decision to cancel lessons?
So happens we have a, it just happens that we have a presentation about snow days. So I think those are the questions that you want answered, so we'll just go through these very quickly. So who makes that call? Basically, as you said, we have a 5:30 conference call that's arranged the day before if we identify that weather is coming in. We have 12 bus operators across the county, in also 3 staff at the consortiums that are on the call. So each of the operators is given an area that they must travel or call about their local townships and so on and so forth to check on road conditions. And so factors that we consider include watches in mornings, in so-called accumulations, as well as in squalls or whiteouts. We also are very concerned about freezing rain. We check the weather, the Environment Canada and the Weather Network. So the call is made at 5:30, but the call is made at 5:30, and then we post everything by 6. And the factors that we consider include road conditions, visibility, forecasted weather information, and precipitation, especially freezing rain. If the clouds have been out, and we check on road conditions from our local service providers and resources and townships. So you can find that information again on Twitter, as well as our website, and then we do email all of the local radio stations so they will be able to broadcast that to us for us also. So last year, and this is a little thing from last year, where we identified that by zone, because we have 4 zones, we had in the north 10 cancellations, in the west 8, central 6, in the south 5. But we also identified here on this map about our surrounding districts. So up in Muskoka, they had 10. In Gray, they had 14. That had a bad year last year in Gray. In Dufferin, they had 12. In York, 2. In Dufferin, 4. For this year, up to the end of January, each of the zones in the north and the west have 3 now. Because we had a cancellation on Monday for the central and the south, they're up to 3 also. So I guess it's tied now. Minnesota, they've had 6. In Gray, 3. Dufferin, 1. York's only had 1, and in Durham also 1. Actually, Durham canceled Monday too, and so did Dufferin, so they're up to 2 each. And that's cancellations. You're welcome.
Okay, do you have any, Trustee Clements, please?
Who determines which schools are 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock start?
That is the school board that identifies that. Now, we do provide input about opportunities that the school board could have with respect to efficiencies and saving money about bell times. In fact, every year we provide the school board, through Spark and Dance, a report identifying opportunities about changes to bell times and how that can create efficiencies and cost savings for the school board. So it is the school board's decision. We do realize that transportation is just one facet of bell time changes, so we respect that. However, we want the school board to be provided with all information about the opportunities for savings if bell times are changed.
Trustee Armstrong, did you have another question?
Thank you for your
Mr. Gannon, in regards to cancellations, I appreciate all the reasons that school could be canceled, but there's just one reason that I seem to get some complaints about, which is kind of strange. I don't know, we don't expect that a reason be given when a cancellation happens. It's the reason when the morning looks great, but things are looking bad for the afternoon. In other words, you can't guarantee that children will be picked up on time and brought home in a reasonable manner. And that's, in a way, I don't know if that's something that on the website you do get reasons or not, but that one, which is rare, I understand that, it'd be sunny, beautiful at, 8 or 9 in the morning, and yet we know it's coming, and therefore, it has to be, and because the afternoon, that's the one that I find it, most parents who ever call me, that's what they're upset about. Why it was fine this morning, they didn't realize the forecast for the situation later time.
That is hard, because we're trying to predict what weather is going to come in around 2 or 3 o'clock. From last year, there was a day last year where we had a situation in Elmville, it was Elmville, where we had to bring kids back to school after they were on the road being transported. There were 3 vehicles, and I think 3 schools involved, 2 of yours, and were for sports. And the kids actually had to be brought back, escorted by fire trucks and police cars. And I must say, when they arrived at the school, all of our reports identified that they were pretty excited, and the community came together and bought from pizza and so on and so forth. It was very impressive. That being said, we still had their parents have to come pick them up at the school. In my time, that was the one time that we had that situation. That same day, just for information, 5,000 children in Peel Region had to be picked out of school. They canceled their vehicles. It was government, I'm sorry. They canceled the vehicles immediately after for government county. And there were 5,000 children that had to be picked up at school. We had about 100, so it wasn't as bad as government, but still that wasn't acceptable to me. It is hard to actually predict that with that weather. I didn't understand that times that predate myself. There was one time, it was probably about 70 years ago, that the buses were canceled in the afternoon, and parents had to pick up kids at school, and there was little campouts in the gym and so on and so forth. It's something that we don't want to do, and obviously, if we can't predict how soon in the afternoon, we will cancel buses. On the other hand, if the weather doesn't come in, then we get the comments on the other side too, because we do understand that we are affecting the routines and the lives of families, about daycare and so on and so forth, by having the children stay at home.
I just want to reiterate that. I know that's extremely rare. I realize that situation, and I really, I don't know, when you guys do the call and you're equally down the middle, what do? Flip a coin, 6 or, you know what I mean? What's the decision-making factor up there?
I think we will always decide on the side of caution and safety. That is what we do. And if we have to take calls from parents, one of us will cancel if it's sunny out, so be it. We will always decide on the side of caution and safety.
Any other questions or comments? I do remember the day that the buses didn't go home and kids didn't go home, and parents from snowmobiles coming to pick them up and getting other people to pick them up. And they were just as many unhappy parents that day too about the situation. So, any other questions with respect to transportation? Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Denham, for coming. And
if I may, I do have some handouts here.
Okay.
That it's okay that again. This first one is actually a sheet where basically that all of the questions about the consortium. Well, the two biggest questions are in terms of the consortium, which is eligibility and bus cancellations. Also, we have calendars here that we put in all the schools that each month has information about transportation in Simcoe County. So I'll leave copies here for you too.
Thank you very much for coming tonight. Make sure everybody has the same information. Transportation, I know in the last 8 years I've had a lot of calls on transportation. So it helps us know where to get the information.
Thank you for your time.
Vice Chair runs the speak.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that the last time we came in and I gave a presentation, I really enjoyed the fact that you have the running real-time. That was my favorite thing on your website. Because parents know it's real-time, their clock that's
Yes.
on your main page. It's so important because they know it's refreshed, it's real-time, that information is real. That was my favorite thing. So now this presentation, my favorite thing is where you can put in your address. That's valuable information and it's so clear and easy for the parents to go in, type in the address and just the fact that you add for the map as well. It's really great information for the parents to have, and I appreciate how much effort you guys put into your website for the information for the parents. Thank you for that.
Well, thank you for that. We have a very good team of consortium. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so the next item on our agenda under presentations and delegations is the capital plan new section, and I think that's Manager Coogan and Superintendent Dance, please.
Thank you, Chair Lloyd, and I apologize, we don't have any loot bags for you tonight. That's our previous presentation, but we will endeavor to entertain you for a short period and then be happy to answer any questions. So I'll just make sure I've got everything set up and close all the additional windows. We will be sending out the screenshots in the presentation that Mr. Canada and Mr. Barbado presented, so you'll have that in your email by the end of the night. So thank you, Chair Lloyd, and with me tonight is Manager of Planning, Enrollment, and Community Use, Andrew Coogan, and alongside Andrew is Sandy Clee, Senior Planner, and also the person who puts together the package for us in the capital plan. I'll try to go through this presentation fairly quickly. You have seen it, hopefully, and then we're here to answer any questions. The full capital plan will be presented to you in electronic and in print form at the next business and facilities meeting, and hopefully that will also allow you the opportunity to see in print some of the sections that we only have a sample of right now, specifically at the end of this presentation. So our capital plan is a big part of what we do in the facility services, but certainly across the whole of the board. When we talk about what the Simcoe County District School Board's mission is, we certainly are here to provide the right spaces for the students and the right size and the right places. So in our introduction, you can see the various different additions, new schools that have taken place since the capital planning process began with this board, and you're welcome to review that. We have been very successful with the ministry through the business case process, and it's one that we continue to strive to achieve. A key element for us in the planning area is with regard to Simcoe County growth, and these are the numbers that are through good places to grow, and these are the expected growth areas in each of the municipalities over the next, it used to be 20 years when we presented this first, and now it's less than that, so we're going to have about 26 years now, 27 years, and these are the expected areas of growth, and you can see why the changing face of facilities and locations of schools are taking place relatively with the different communities. Places to grow identified, urban growth nodes, growth areas, and that's consistent with what we're seeing across the county. This is a simple enrollment summary, but it's one that tells the tale of our capacity, which is the black line, and it also tells you the enrollment of our students. So we are in a very good place relative to the rest of the province with regard to the work that this board has done over the last several years, where we are just above with enrollment as opposed to our on-the-ground capacity, which is not counting portables, it's counting the buildings that we have. And so this is elementary enrollment, and you can see as secondary where we have been and where we're going. The dip is, in both of these, is related to either additional pupil places in new schools, or it's the change with the closure of schools. And you can see how we can expect to see in the next little while in secondary a rebound in population and being over capacity, which is not bad to a certain extent, but across 16, 17 secondary schools, it's an important thing to keep in mind. What you have in front of you in this section are the anticipated or recommended planning studies. One is an attendance area review involving in the Angus area, and it's to relieve pressure on Angus Morrison relative to the size of Pine River. Another one is that word that everybody knows around the table, ARC, and this is in relation to building condition at Bing Public School and also program delivery. We see an opportunity here that as we map forward, depending on when the provincial guidelines come out and the following our policy revisions, the opportunity to make policy revisions, the opportunity to make changes in the accommodation in the town of Stainer within the township of Clearview, because there's a significant portion of the township that feeds these schools. And so that will be one that will come forward. That's why it says 2015-16. Program reviews, another one in Bradford that we're looking at with regards to a split or divided French immersion program between two sites, because we continue to see growth in our schools and we want to be able to provide them with a holding school, which is what we usually do in a planning context before we get the business case to be successful for another school. And the final one that we're looking at is a program review with regard to Elmville and Coronia Centennial with an eye to, as you can see if you dig a little deeper in the Stainer one, it is a 7 to 12 model, because we have our overcapacity at the elementary school and undercapacity at the secondary school, looking towards a 7 to 12 model for those two smaller communities, certainly looking at the viability of having those high schools in the communities. Our capital priorities that are recommended right now, based on board approval after this process, I have to say that, but we already did approve 4 priorities going towards the anticipated call, which will come before this capital plan will be approved, and they are the top 4 on this list. So you can see we have 3 new ones on here. One key one for us to point out, rural services, is regarding the septic system capabilities of the area around the north end of Barrie. We have a number of schools that are presenting a tremendous challenge for as far as accommodation and growth and keeping up with that. These rural communities, whether it's from Horseshoe Valley over to Snow Valley, are becoming popular. Families and schools are growing, even though they are all on service, non-service septic systems, which means there's limited growth that we can do in those schools. Another one, Cameron Street School, is to accommodate because as it grows with the French program, and we've seen that, and Central Collegiate is a placeholder right now, depending on the results of the ARC, to look at an addition and renovation there to make it appropriate for a 7 to 12 setting. Our early learning initiatives are outlined here as a key for us, and I think it's an important part as FDK has come to fruition that everyone sees how deep we are going into this. We've said this before, our kindergarten programs are well known around the province. Trustees heard last week Jim Grieve mentioning our Mittens in the Snow program from 2 Saturdays ago, and the outdoor spaces that we've been trying to lead. You can see in the picture here, this is Cookstown Public School, Central Public School, and outdoor spaces there. But we've also been very excited about the child and family centers and our before and after schools settings, where we have 76 schools right now offering those programs, which, as you know, when people talk about hubs, once they come to your school, they stay at your school, and that helps us with their overall enrollment. French immersion, it will be in more detail as we go on, but we have a number of current sites that are located here, and these are the different strategies just in a single page that it's outlined for you. There's explanatory notes in the final full version of the capital plan with regard to these elements or the strategies that we're using. And you can see in some schools we've already done this. Dual track schools is what we started with. We are, and later on tonight, you're considering a report regarding that single track French immersion school, but we can go into details with the questions that come forward. Our technological education renewal project is in phase 3. We're entering that area. We have done tremendous work, and I have to pay tribute to the fact that the director and Superintendent Jeffs have made this the funding available. If you've been in our secondary schools, you've seen, I was able to go to Bradford last week and tweet out about the hospitality suite there that is an amazing space. We've been able to do that because of the commitment from this board through the technology renewal program to renew our technology spaces in our secondary schools. People talk about job markets, and we're trying to address that in a variety of ways, providing bright spaces for the students so they have a future through our schools. Our slogan says that, the future our pleasure. We also pursue facility partnerships, and Superintendent Sloan is the leader of that with regard to that, but certainly it's a collaborative effort amongst us, and these are ones that we'll be looking at as we move forward with the school projects and capital priorities that we do. Of note, and I have to say this, I didn't say this about capital priorities, you'll note that priority here, number 3, is called North Simcoe Secondary School. That's a placeholder name because that is what came out of the ARC with resulting closure of Penetanquishing Secondary School to look at renaming the school in North Simcoe
to reflect the community, and hopefully, after we hear about school consolidation funding, the blending of those two school communities in a new building on that site. And we've already begun conversations with different stakeholders, including the health unit and the YMCA about that. This is a list without detail of all our environmental initiatives, including our active transportation program and our green teams, but also with our feed-in tariff programs for solar panels, which we hope to start seeing going on in our schools in the next few months. But it's been a lot of work on the part of the maintenance and environmental services department. Another key area for us, and we reference it, is surplus property. When we have surplus property identified, look towards declaring surplus, moving towards disposition. And you can see the ones that have been declared surplus over the last couple of years in the top box, and then the lower box are those properties under consideration as we go forward. And some key elements there. A couple things just so people know. Washington Pines has become a maintenance center. Staff have asked that that one remain a maintenance center, so it's not going on there as opposed to Washington Elementary School. And Artria, after we have moved out of Cumberland Beach, moved over to Artria as Cumberland builds, or the school on Cumberland builds, that would be right now we have a maintenance center at Twin Lakes Secondary School. We would be moving that out of the school setting and moving it to Artria, which is accessible and it's a great location for us in the future. So that's what our proposal is right now. That's why you would not see those properties on that list. The following section is just an example, and you can work your way through it, but you can see the different elements that are in each section as we go forward. This is just Southwest Elementary School. Each section is put together by Senior Planner Clee with the staff, and all the other departments contain each one of these elements, and you can certainly see these in previous capital plans. I won't go through these, but certainly in my presentation part, and open it up to questions. Thank you as a group.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Clements, please.
For you, Chair, to speak again. The first thing is on the page 3, it's got the growth estimates. It says 2006, so they've been updated since then, or are we still 2006 under growth?
Andrew, please.
Through Chair, these are the numbers set out from the growth plan, which was established at that time. Those targets have not changed. It is important to keep in mind that these are growth targets, of course, so we're constantly monitoring what's actually happening in reality. But as far as these numbers changing, they are up to date now. The growth plan is going to be reviewed in the next few months or years.
Sorry, so are you saying these numbers?
Through the chair, please.
Through the chair, are you saying these numbers are up to date, or are they?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you. Trustee Locke, please.
Madam Chair, through you to next.
Andrew, I'll get used to it. So I just want to make sure that we're looking at 2011 census, but the growth, the proposed growth, OPA number 1, is from 2006. So although the growth plan is 2006, we are still tracking through census numbers. I just want to confirm that.
Through you, Chair, that's correct.
Thank you.
And, Trustee Chandler, please.
Thank you, and through you, the Chair. I was wondering to Superintendent Dance, can you clarify the capital partnership opportunities I'm seeing for Elmvale 2016 for addition renovation, and then Stainer not till 2018 addition renovation? So how does that fit into the arc and the possible changes that might happen at Stainer?
Superintendent Dance, please.
Through you, Chair, Trustee Chandler, it certainly is a moving target at this point. Elmville has been our capital priorities. We have had discussions with the Township of Springwater already with regard to a possible partnership. We are still open to continued exploration of furthering the partnership with other groups when we know the scope of work. And with regard to the Stainer situation, it would be one where an ARC at this point, for people who haven't been involved and people who have been, usually takes about 7 or 8 months to complete. So it ends up encompassing over the course of a year. And then after the conclusion of the ARC, the ministry would fund a project. So there is a delay of time, one, due to the length of the ARC, and then at this time, based on present guidelines, the length of the ARC, we understand there may be a shortened version, and then also being able to put forward a business case and have it approved by the ministry, which doesn't always happen the first year, towards that goal. So that would probably best describe the distance between those two projects, 2016 and 2018. Elmville would not require an ARC, whereas the Stainer one would, and that has incumbent with that is ARC time and also business case and acceptance and funding.
Further to that, so with the whole concept of 7 to 12, which is very alarming to some people, I've done some research on it, and I think there's a lot of value to it, and socially, academically, and so it's a big thing to get your head around. But how do you see the rollout of that in terms of, I understand that ultimately, possibly Elmville might be doing the same thing. So what's the timeline in terms of it happening, or maybe happening in Stainer, and then maybe happening? Are they ever mentioned together or not, or one happens way before the other if it happens?
Superintendent Dance, please.
Through you, Chair, with Trustee Chandler, I think that would be proven out in the timelines as was just mentioned. We believe that in the case of Stainer, it is incumbent on us to address the situation at Bing, and because that is a consolidation, the ministry, the trustee table recalls, the ministry is looking at 3 things right now: utilization, consolidation, and growth. I can't say which one would be further up the list for the ministry, but if it aligns, it would be a perfect opportunity to have a shared experience between those 2 small schools and have the same experience between one community and another community. There is a parallel between them, and it's one that we certainly can see how they would line up the experiences of one principal or 2 principals in a community and share it across. But that's one of the key elements that we'll be looking at in the next while, through whether it's a planning study and then eventually through an ARC in Stainer, is to explore the variety of 7 to 12 settings. My understanding from Senior Planner Clee, there are 127 7 to 12 schools within the province of Ontario, and try to bring that information back and the learnings in transition. Because as trustees recognize, when we go into these processes, whether it's the consolidation of the school or the relocation of the school population due to closure or other factors, attendance error reviews, we try to, and we work as hard as possible to make a smooth transition with the school communities and give them as much information as we move towards that day.
Thank you. Trustee Clements, please.
Through you, Chair, at the conference, they were talking about up to age 7 after daycare. So do you remember that? They were talking about having full daycare after hours for up to age 12. Is there anything to do for that? Is that accounted for in this, or?
Through you, Chair Lloyd, to Trustee Clements, we do provide before and after school care for students going forward in those 76 centers that we have. We continue to explore and do more. As far as full daycare, that's a situation that it's always comes down to parental choice as to whether, and also our capacity. our partners, the different childcare groups across this area, they also have to make sure that their business cases are held and how many spaces they have. But we're seeing with the integration of administrative community and social services, child and youth into education, a move towards a more integrated system that, ask Senior Manager Clee, who's involved in this, if there's any further on that.
Yes, thank you. We've been doing a lot of group initiatives with our community partners. Unfortunately, at this point, the Ministry of Education does not fund childcare proper, so the actual physical plants. So we are trying to seek out partnerships of a capital nature with any of our new builds. We're hoping that that aligns a little bit as the two ministries get together and realize the need for childcare. In the secondary panel, if there was existing childcare, we are eligible to replace those people places of childcare, and that's what we're aiming to do.
Trustee Aikens, please.
Thank you, and through the chair, Superintendent Dan. I'm on page 7 of the section, the capital priorities. Can you please explain to me the difference between growth school and growth accommodation for meeting styles and rural services?
Thank you. Through your chair, Trustee Aikens. The growth school is a business case for one building on a site taking place. The growth accommodation is intended to try to capture for you the understanding that we're trying to keep up with the growth accommodation at, in this case, 5 different schools. The schools we are identifying right now are all septic system schools, Minising, Forest Hill, W.R. Best, Guthrie, Shane Bay. So it's to accommodate those across those 5 locations, and that's why it doesn't say growth school, it says growth accommodation. We do not see in the foreseeable future, and it may change in Midhurst for Forest Hill, fully serviced sites in any of those locations, but we are seeing the pressures come along with additional students coming out of those areas.
Trustee Locke, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to Superintendent Dance. So I'm guessing that the, Clean Water Act isn't going to help us fund any more big septic tank improvements. I'm just looking at other ministries, that's where we can pull dollars, but I know with the resource protection, because I worked on it for 10 years, and the Clean Water Act, there's no opportunity for funding, just a little letter saying we need to fix this.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Lloyd, Vice Chair Locke and Trustee Locke. This is a little bit different for us as far as a capital priority, but we see the need, and I believe that in the initial conversations with the ministry, they're sort of wondering, but we are trying to make the point, that this is a rural community, or rural communities that need to be provided with the same level of service. And the Ministry of the Environment has taken a very different approach to septic systems within the last 5 years. I think I said this with the trustee group the other day. I've learned a lot more about flow and nitrate levels than I ever thought I would know in this situation, and that's one that we've seen with regard to the Ministry of the Environment. We certainly always look to make, as to echo what CEO Cadena said about safety, and we always err on that side, but it's one that the table has shifted in quite a bit there, but without funding, it's not a funded source, and so trustees will have seen and will continue to see not just roofs, but septic systems being addressed through renewal dollars, which are never enough. Our backlog is significant. It's not like some others, but it's still one that we continue to try to address through the funding sources we do have.
Director Waltz, please.
To you, Madam Chair. So that's why you're going to see what used to be on a renewal list, taking dollars from there. What we're trying to do is shift that need onto this list. Because we're saying this is really a capital cost. This is really because of the regulations, etc. This is causing us capital needs. So that's why it's going here. And this is the first time we've put it here. We truly believe it belongs here. We'll see. So I'm just telling you that. because we think we're taking far too many dollars out of renewal that should go to roofs, that should go for painting, that should go for all those other kinds of things that we so desperately need in some of our older schools. But we're having to take the dollars because of the new regs for the septic system. So that's why, and you asked a very good question earlier on about what's the difference between growth school and growth accommodation. That's really what this is. It's, as we get more students into these schools, it's putting greater pressure on the septic systems, and therefore we're having to come in and do the work that's very, very costly.
Any other questions? Manager Coogan, please.
I was just getting to add to that, these rural schools are very unique in that regard in terms of growth. We don't necessarily associate growth with these schools, but they're very healthy populations, and we are seeing changes in demographics or shifts that are drawing people to these areas. So that's why we can categorize it into that growth category. But yeah, it is unique across the board in terms of what we see at other rural schools are a little bit smaller and I guess somewhat stable or declining levels.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, I just have a question about, I'm quite pleased to see on here the proposal or considerations for Stainer and Elmville, because when I think it was the last meeting before, we looked at enrollment, and they are continuing to decline, and they are significantly low. When I know we've always talked about optimal high school programming, you need your 900 to 1,000, 1,100 students to actually get programming, and I think Stainer's down to 300 and some students at this point in time. So if they move into the 7 to 12 model, will that help facilitate programming or just allow staffing, or how are we still going to, if this model it moves forward, address the programming in a high school with 300 and some students?
Thank you, through Chair White, to you. And I'll ask my colleagues at the table to add if there's anything further. We see this covering off almost all those aspects. We see this as a situation for, based on projections right now, the students that would be coming from the Clearview and Baden schools, for example, would total around 75 or 80 students, which would enable greater programming and use of the facility that's already there at Stainer, and also allow for the full utilization of that without adding a brand new school on the other side of town, for example, which would be a challenge to do. And this is something we get caught in some of our communities, and Alliston's a good example for this as well. Traditionally, the population has been the equivalent of 2.5 schools, not 3 schools. We're seeing the growth in a community like Alliston, we're not otherwise. But that's part of the unique nature of a 7 to 12 school, is that if in Huronia, Centennial, and Elmville, it could add 100 students to the population at Elmville District High School site, which then utilizes space and allows programming. And for us, a very exciting and interesting aspect is another one is retention of those students, because the same thing we talked about with child cares and before and afters, if they start at that school in grade 7 and 8, they won't be leaving. On an anecdotal basis, that's what we're hearing. And beyond that, also the exciting opportunities to do technological or other education using the facilities at these high schools for those 7 and 8 students. And that would lead us into more programming opportunities with, albeit not as great numbers as some of the others, but using the facility as much as possible.
Thank you. But just as a follow-up to that, I don't have great familiarity or knowledge of the 7 to 12 model, but I happen to go to an elementary school where we had full rotation in grade 7 and 8, which was a great prepare for high school. So in a 7 to 12 model, would it give the opportunity for students to have some rotation or specialized instruction if it was in that 7 to 12 model?
Through you, Chair, certainly that's an aspect that we'd have to explore during the programming of that. But for example, at Stainer, we were able to go along with Manager Parker to review the Stainer physical plan last fall. And for example, I believe we were there just after the end of school, and we checked in with the principal and talked about the use of the computer lab not being used by secondary school students for at least one period a day. That would be the opportunity, for example, for the 7s and 8s to access that on a rotational basis. This is a computer lab that does ComTech work, that has CAD capabilities, so that does open it up, and it would be certainly an opportunity to explore that rotation Rotary, we used to call it, and especially with regards to specific program spaces, just the gym, for example, maybe a good lead-in as well, where a gymnasium in a small secondary school is not fully utilized, and we'd be able to do that through health and physical education.
Dr. Wallace? To you, Madam Chair. A couple of models that I've looked at actually had been almost similar to a secondary, because you're moving the kids every 75 minutes. So the rest of your school is moving, so you have to keep that in mind as you schedule. So you set the schedules up to accommodate both populations, but keeping in mind both populations as you work that through. So there's various models to do that. You do, though, the teachers often in the 7-8 are still elementary teachers, so they still are under that collective agreement. So you have to work with 2 different collective agreements, but we have many examples of that happening. And in fact, just not too far from us here in Blue Water, they have K-12 students. So they take it all the way through. So it's absolutely done, and done quite successfully once you get your head around it and once you figure it out.
Thank you, Trustee Armstrong.
Good evening, I don't know if you were Superintendent answer for Director Wallace. When I look at the capital plan and comparing it to some other years, I just want to thank you and your staff, because to get to the point that we're at now took a lot of difficult decision making and planning and incredible amounts of staff time. For such a large board, we could be in a position where if we chose to not have done action when we had to do action for the last 10 years, it would be in a much different situation. So I'm grateful for that, because I think we're coming into a real time of financial austerity. So besides that challenge of finding out when funding or not, announcements come, I would think that's the biggest challenge in most boards. What do you perceive the biggest amount of staff time or biggest challenge of this plan? And I don't know if there's any slam dunks in here, but I guess a comment of what do you perceive is going to be the most bulk of the time of your staff to work on this?
Superintendent Dance, please.
I'll defer to the director.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, for capital planning, putting that aside, the work we're going to have to do fairly quickly is taking a look at the whole accommodation review process. And we know that in a very short timelines, we're going to get this new guidelines, revised guidelines coming to us. And so we're going to have to take a look at these guidelines, take a look at our policy, and revise it accordingly. And have the input necessary from our public to understand the reasons for and why we're doing this, and all that surrounds that. And that takes time. That takes understanding for people to understand why those guidelines are the way they are, and then how does that impact our policy, and what does that look like on a go forward. So when you see in this where eventually we would be doing an accommodation review, all that work would have to be done ahead of time, and that's why there will be some delays in doing that. Business cases are always lots of fun, and that's something too that this staff spends a great deal of time and effort on, making sure we have our data correct, making sure that we've gone to all the different sources that we need to go to, so that when we send information down to the ministry, they can rely on that information from us as being accurate as possible about that day and time that we sent that information to. So, and you know what, enrollment is a fleeting thing. It moves a little bit. People don't stay put anymore. They move. And so you're trying to make sure that you're keeping a pretty good eye on that from year to year. But as we've said to you before, we've been very fortunate that our planning department has always had a pretty good handle on the numbers coming forward. And I could never understand how David Few could understand how many kids came out of any one house in the county, but somehow he had figured that out. And I know he's trained Andrew in that ability. And that's a real skill, to really understand what a subdivision might produce for us. in order to make these plans, know what we need to go to the ministry with in order to plan out 4 years from now. Because we know we get funding, we plan on wanting funding, and it's really almost 3 or 4 years out before you really have a school, or you might even get the funding for a school, and then it's another couple of years. So you can't be a impatient person. You have to be in around this table. You have to help your constituents understand that you're working on it. But it's with a great deal of patience to get it all to happen eventually. Aurelia is a really good example, folks, of us starting a process many, many years ago. And when I watch that building going up now, I think, okay, fine. And I know that some people around this table know it's the same thing, and we just kept at it and kept at it. And that's what we continue to do. So for John's staff, they keep smiling and keep working away at things, but maybe you can add to it.
And through you, and I agree with the director on all those counts. I did put this screen back up again because I think this is one that trustees should understand, that we don't go into the disposition of property and declare the surplus just to do that. I think everybody's watching what's happening in Toronto. For us, we always go to the ministry as part of business cases, and this is a lot of work on the part of the planning department, the analysis to see whether we need facilities, but it's also one where it becomes to sweeten the pot, so that our proceeds of disposition is an element that when Superintendent Justin and I were with our Regional Education Council of Business and Facility Superintendents, people from larger boards than us were amazed that we mobilize proceeds of disposition and put them against capital projects, so that the ministry is not, for example, in a $5 million project paying $5 million, but $4 million and $1 million comes from ours. So we're getting a $5 million project for 80-cent ministry dollars. That is attractive to them because then we can multiply projects. And I would say that that strategy and the amount of work that goes into the business cases, the spreadsheets that you've seen over the last couple of years, they're becoming more and more intricate, and we'll share them again as we go forward. That's a process that I believe helped land this archery at Cumberland, because in the Victoria Harbour case, we asked for a certain number of dollars, and the ministry plucked the dollars out from the proceeds of disposition for this board and put it against there, and we wondered, oh, what are you doing? And then we turned around and gave us the money for archery at Cumberland Beach, over $7 million. For good reason, because it's a great business case, but it's also one that they, I would say the rewards are starting to come in for being able to put together good business cases that are sound in planning, sound based on the enrollment projections, sound based on the usage and our use of the dollars the ministry gives us.
Thank you. Trustee Chandler, and then Aiken's next after that.
Thank you, and through the chair. I guess more of a comment than anything, that I think what we have working in our favor is that Collingwood and Elmvale are very community oriented. And so the 7 days going into SCI, they probably already know most of the kids in 9 to 12, they might have older brothers and sisters. And I think what's great about it is that it provides mentorship opportunities for the older kids to mentor the 7s and 8s in after school programs when they get community service hours, which is a great thing. And then in terms of the elementary school, what happens when you have grade 1 to 6, I think the grade 6s and 5s become empowered, have a bit more leadership, because now they're sort of, the big ones on the totem pole. But they're, and I think it provides a nice atmosphere there for them to show a little bit more early mentorship. So I think socially that those things we have in our favor, because Dana is such a community-minded school, so them.
Thank you. Trustee Aiken, please.
Thank you, to the chair, Superintendent Vance. When the capital plan project list came out in 2014, it was November 5th at that meeting. It was listed that Barrie North Collegiate was to get a consolidation, addition, and renovation. And now on this report on page 7, it says that Barrie North is only to receive consolidation with renovation and program updates. So the addition is off this, and the program updates. Are we going to get an updated, are we going to get at the next meeting, are we going to get a case that says all of the
the breakdown of everything that's gonna be in that, or is that all, is additional?
Thank you, through you, Chair Lloyd. Good catch. I would say that the business case that's been submitted for Barrie North includes addition at this time, and it hasn't changed, so it really is our change, I would say not a consistent language on our part, but the business case that was submitted for school capital consolidation, that's before the ministry, hopefully going to get a result, includes an addition, and that's, so it would be the same, and I believe it's in the same, it's almost the exact same price range, so it does include an addition, and we'll edit, and that's certainly the intent of this presentation, and for questions, we will go back and clean up aspects such as that.
And Trustee Dahl.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a comment. Last Thursday, we had our ministry training, and Minister Sandals was there, and she was pretty blunt and very open and honest with us that the ministry is very tired of spending millions of dollars keeping half-empty schools heated and kept going when those millions of dollars should be going exactly to the students, to the programming, and to the students that we have. So I think that the general public is up for a big awakening. In some boards, I know that I am grateful for our board and the hard work that we've done. And it has not been an easy 4 years, but we've made those hard decisions. And I feel bad for the rest of the province who now has to catch up to us.
Thank you for those comments. Any other questions on this information? There's more to come. This is just the lead into it. There'll be more details or background that comes forward, more opportunity to discuss more in-depth and detailed questions, but this was just the start of the process. Okay, so seeing no further questions, thank you very much. So we move into items for decision, and the first one tonight is the attendance area review for Tate Elementary Schools. Master Superintendent Davis.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Lloyd, I'd ask that Manager Cupid remain disabled for the next couple of reports, if that's okay. So before trustees tonight is the results of the attendance area review that was conducted for Tate Elementary Schools, leading towards the consolidation of the 3 schools. We refer to them as Tate Elementary Schools. That was the name of the accommodation review committee that took place because they were longer on Wabashee, Port McNicoll, and Victoria Harbour schools. And a meeting was held with the community in the fall with regard to the plan towards consolidating these 3 areas. And as the report outlines for you, the comments and concerns were related to the potential of a certain segment of the area, specifically the part that is around Fesserton, going towards Coldwater. And because of that information that was received at the public meeting, we solicited more information from the community, and as it's detailed in this report, although there was some interest in direction towards Coldwater as opposed towards the consolidated school of Victoria Harbour, there was not consistency, and it was not geographically, we were not able to geographically locate a consistent area so that you could draw a line and say this is the boundary. And so based on the surveys sent out and the results, those concerns we've brought forward the recommendation tonight to consolidate based on the 3 existing attendance areas being converging into the 1 new attendance area. So as you can see from the chart, here we're looking at a situation where the school's consolidated, and you can see the actual and the projected going forward. We're building a school that will accommodate these students. At first, there will be a couple of portals on site, and then we'll see how the enrollment stabilizes. This is to echo what Trustee or Chair Lloyd had said earlier about optimal school size. This puts the school in a situation where it's the optimal size, which is about 400 to 550 based on our terms of reference for accommodation review, which maximizes program opportunities in this situation. So before you use the recommendation, and certainly happy to answer any questions with regard to this attendance review.
Okay, are there any questions with respect to this report? Okay, I have a question then. I know, prior that this area was my responsibility as a trustee, and I did get a couple of inquiries with respect to kids who lived in that Western area about going to Coldwater. So from this report, we're not moving them to Coldwater, they're going to stay where they've historically been. But that would not prevent those parents from requesting an out of area to go to Coldwater, because I know Coldwater's not overutilization, but it would be with no transportation, because that would be at their choice to go to that school, is that correct?
Through you, that is correct.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Sorry.
Just to elaborate on that, one of the key considerations here too was the secondary school catchment area, and we would make that very clear to people as well. If they go to Coldwater Public School, then they would be headed towards the really secondary schools. And trustees who were at the ARC with me at the time, I always ask them where they got their news from, because that's a good indication of where their lives are centered. And you're correct, a lot of them, some would look towards Brilliant being centered that way, others look north to Midland. That's certainly one of the considerations we would when we brought this forward.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Law, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and just to comment that I did attend the public meeting on October 29th, and there were about 10 people in attendance, and there were no outstanding concerns or issues from anyone in attendance. So.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other questions, there is a recommendation contained in the report that the Business and Facilities Standing Committee recommended the board approve the attendance area effective September 2015 and set out Appendix B of report number BFD1, attendance area review, Tay Elementary School, dated February 4th, 2014. Mr. Mover, Trustee Locke, seconder, Trustee Chandler. Any questions or comments? Okay, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that carries. That takes us down to item number 2, which is the attendance area review for Southeast Berry Elementary. Superintendent Dance, please.
Thank you. And through you, Chair White, for trustees tonight, it's a attendance area review referenced earlier in the capital plan with regard to a single track French immersion program. The situation in the southeast corner of Barrie is a unique one in our board, with Monica basically being, for all intents and purposes, the center of a hub of schools which have been feeding it through French programming, either FI in the last 2 years or EFSL for a number of years. And what the board staff have learned certainly is that we've seen a change in the population at the school to the point where it is now a considerably greater number of students in French programming, either FI or EFSL, than there is in the regular or English track. And a significant concern to staff and to the school community with regard to a school that is as large as Monica is, the potential eventually of going to a triple grade in the English area. As you can see in this chart, the grade 1s in the English program projected going forward, 7 students. And then 7 students, potentially that could lead to, a very nice class of grade 1, 2, or 14, but it could also lead to a 1, 2, 3. That is certainly something that through the Board of Trustees and certainly the staff, we try to avoid triple grade opportunities wherever possible. So if this trend, which has continues on further, we would see that taking place. When we also have a situation at this school where there's an accommodation challenge with regard to the size of the school and continuing to grow. And as trustees know, with year-over-year growth of a French immersion program, that's 2 additional classes on 2 additional classes. And the strategy that staff and certainly has been presented up to date and through the attendance area review has been to examine the opportunities for a single track French immersion school fed from the same schools that it's been involved with, and the distribution of these English track students or regular track students to the surrounding schools, which in some cases, specifically with Hyde Park, brings them closer to their home school, as opposed to what has taken place, and you can see this through the mapping that's been included in the report. At present, you have the students who live along Big Bay Point Road who leap over top of Hyde Park and Hewitt's Creek areas to get to Monica. So it really is a collection of reasons and issues that have come together to bring this forward. So this is a very detailed report with regard to some of the aspects that are taking place. You can see through the status quo in the single track, the proposed populations. We have seen, although Hewitt's Creek and Hyde Park continue to be in growth areas, they're starting to stabilize to a certain extent, and we have seen decreases at Algonquin Ridge over the last couple of years. It is a school that has been well accommodated. They expected changes through this. In detail also, I have to point out, we took into account accommodations through transportation, and it will require some additional funding through transportation to the amount of 2 buses. We believe this is the long-term plan that takes advantage of the efficiencies. This would be covered by the transportation grant, so we would not see this as an additional cost to this move other than the provision of these 2 buses. I have to point out, though, this would be where the plan at this point is to have transportation align, even though it's a single track French immersion school, it would have its 1.6 walking zone just as other schools do, and then the students outside that area would be provided with transportation along the lines of what we do in every other French program location, which is centralized community bus stops. That is, otherwise the area for this school would be encompassing 6 or 7 schools area. So it's really intended to stay in alignment with what we already have, but also provide within that 1.6 kilometers of Warnica, it would be the walk zone for that. In addition, we've also added in, for example, suggestions from the consortium with regard to bell times for efficiencies based on the changes that are taking place. Hyde Park at this point does not have regular transportation into it, and that will provide for the efficiencies as the consortium is referenced. Through the comments and concerns, one of the key concerns that was heard at the attendance area review that Manager Kukin was part of was the double change that could be potentially there for some students. And it's detailed and explained in this report, but it's one to mention is that we have to continue to, staff contend that we have to continue to treat the decision to go to a French program as a parental choice that is a program choice. It's not one that the board is deciding for. It's one where we will provide English accommodation and programming in their home school in every situation. If parents choose to go to a French program, then they have to realize that it will encompass some change. And it wouldn't matter if it was this year or next year or the following year, somebody in this situation would have a double change. For example, those grade 3s going into grade 4 and then kind of changing to go towards the EFSL. And through our experiences over time, we certainly understand that it's best to get on with the change rather than delay it. In this situation, we're meeting the accommodation needs, the program needs for both populations. And staff believe it is the correct move given the popularity of the programs, but also the needs of the English population. So we're certainly happy to answer any questions.
Trustee Akins, please.
Thank you for the chair. To stop the kindergartens having to move again and again, would we stop registration for those kindergarten students even though they're going to be moving to go to freshman immersion grade 1? Would we stop like registration of new students in junior and senior kindergarten?
Through you, Chair, like Trustee Akins, anybody pending passage of this set of recommendations and the attendance area changes, effective that passage, then those students would become students of the new area, and so they would move based on their attendance area. So if the student lived across the road from Warnica School, they would be in Algonquin Ridge's area, and they would then be included in the Algonquin Ridge kindergarten numbers. And so we would not stop registration, we would continue registration, but we would do it based on their geographic location.
Okay, Trustee Main.
Thank you, Chair Roden, through you to Superintendent Dan. I just have a question about the bail time changes. When it lists Warnica, it gives status quo or an alternate time. Why does that one warrant an or?
Superintendent Davis, please.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Lloyd, and Vice Chair Main, it certainly is, I believe it was an expression on our part that we could continue with the same timeline, which is 9 o'clock to 3:30. There is more flexibility in that one because of the fact that it will have its own F5 or EFSL busing. So it's status quo at this time right now is 9 o'clock to my understanding, so it's a 10-minute difference. It was also, I believe, intended so that we're already changing a lot of Orca, so not to change too much if necessary, if we have a choice.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? Trustee Clements, please.
Through you, Chair. So I understand this school will be entirely French. Would they be better served with the French school board instead?
Superintendent Dancer.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Lloyd, to Trustee Clements, certainly we think they'd be better served by us with regards to the French programming, but it's also one that in order to attend French language schools, whether it's the French Public Board, Guillemot, or the Catholic French Board in this area, there are certain requirements. One of those is a language requirement. In our situation, in French immersion, there's no language requirement on the part of parents or where people were educated, and that's one, I believe, which adds to the fact that we have had increased enrollment across these programs. So there's no additional requirement other than being a student. And this is one that trustees around this table recall with the institution of French immersion and extended French, whether we are starting to see students from other boards come to us because of this. So I believe also the long-term situation for us is that you're also affiliated with secondary school programs that offer a wide range of programs. And French immersion begins to decrease in its amount of language in French when you, certainly in the junior and intermediate grades, but also in secondary school where there's more of a requirement of taking a certain number of courses. And that keeps a very broad horizon for students. So long answer, but there are differences in what you're able to apply for and be registered through. And with us, it's every student is welcome.
Casey, Trustee Armstrong, please.
This is today's question about serving our students, and I think certainly as a public board, as a county, you know, we want to be the premier #1 choice for all parents to serve the students, whether you know, whatever program needs children may have, and I'm speaking of all of the 4 board types in this province, and also private school, and also homeschooling. I think that's something that, you know, as a public board, we want to strive to be the #1 choice in all student needs, because I think that with one of the biggest strengths that we have as a public board is we're such a large board, therefore we have the resources, we have the expertise to offer the best for all of our students and communities. So, you know, I think French immersion especially was something that has been near and dear to many of our hearts to get it into our public board for so many years, because we felt that there was a need, it was a huge need that parents wanted, and we needed to supply them. And I think, you always have to be cognizant of what the needs are of our community and respond. So I think it's certainly as time goes on, we want to be the premier #1 choice for every student in this community. And you know, I really thank this public board, because without it, in so many cases, our children, they wouldn't be successful becoming vibrant citizens. So, you know, I think we want to always make that the focus, no matter if it's this facilities program, human resources board. You know, our #1 key is, and we're just talking about a survey monkey that just came through with trustees for communications thing. You know, what is the #1 strength of this board? It's like, we want to be the #1 choice for all parents to have their children go to our board.
Director Walls, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The other part of this report, that I don't want us to lose, is the fact that as a public board, we are providing a program for all young people. And so in looking at this, we really were starting to become concerned about the numbers for the young people who were choosing this program. And although we think it's the best thing and the best program for our young people to choose, if they so want to choose it, we also always want to be concerned about all of our parents. And so for these parents, who, for all kinds of reasons, chose not to, we're seeing these numbers being quite small. And so that concerns us as well. And so, again, saying to those parents, we care about what we're programming for you, that terminal grades are the right way to go, but we're seeing this trend, so how can we help you too? And so in this way, I think that, yes, we're going to add on a couple of extra buses, but it shows we care for both sides, that we care for all of our kids. And so for some of the parents, you may get those phone calls because you're saying, this is my community, I need my community school. It's trying to say to them, but we care about your kids and we want to make sure we're programming appropriately for them as well. So I think this meets the needs on both sides.
Okay, we have no other speaker list, so there's 2 recommendations contained in this report. The Business and Facilities Standing Committee recommended the board approve the transition of Warner Public School to a single-track French school effective September 2015, as set out in report number BFD2, attendance area review, Southeast Ferry Elementary, dated February 4th, 2015. Second recommendation is that the Business and Facilities Standing Committee recommend that the board approve the attendance area effective September 2015, as set up in Appendix D of report number BFD2, attendance area review, Southeast Ferry Elementary, dated February 4th, 2015. Is there a mover? Trustee Aikens, and the seconder is Trustee De Silva. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And opposed? Those are both carried. Thank you. Okay, so that takes us to item number 3 for decision, and that's a review of policy number 2510, communications. That's Director Walls, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I've mentioned before, we have a cycle of review of our policies, a 3-year cycle. And so we're bringing this policy forward as part of our review. As I've indicated, or as we've indicated in this, we do not see a necessity to make any changes to this policy. So we are asking that the board approve it as it is, and that we just move forward within the cycle that it is contained in. But this is what we do every 3 years, is review it as staff, and then bring it forward to you.
Thank you. Any questions with respect to this? Okay, seeing none, there is a recommendation that the Business Facilities Standing Committee recommend the board approve that policy number 2510, communications review status quo, as set out in Appendix A of report number BFD3, review of policy number 2510, communications, dated February the 4th, 2015. Is there a mover? Thank you. Trustee De Silva, seconded. Trustee Law. Questions or comments? Okay, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. That takes us to item number 4, revision to policy 2115, trustee expenditures. That's Superintendent Jeff, please.
Thank you, Chair. Item for you. What you have before you tonight is revision to policy 2115, trustee expenditures. You'll note that majority of the changes that were made here are related to the elimination of BlackBerry specific devices and to a more generic term of cellular devices. I think this policy was written at a time when maybe BlackBerry dominated the cellular world, and at the time we probably didn't foresee anything other than BlackBerry in our world. But as we all know, times have changed, and so we moved on and have gone to a more generic term. A couple other small changes. With relationship clarity on trustee professional development expenditures, where at the time this policy was written, there wasn't a cap on professional development for trustees, so I had the additional language to deal with that as it currently exists today. So, other than that, I think there's not many changes of significance, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Any questions on this one? Okay, Trustee Main, please.
Thank you, Charlotte, and through you to Superintendent Jess. In there it says trustees may have an option to purchase certain equipment. What certain equipment? Because I've tried to, I've asked about purchasing the old cell phones in the past and got a big X name, not something.
And through the chair to trustee Wayne, if you can direct me to,
Top of page 3, or what's page 3 on page 9, I think. Page 9, 4.11. All board issued information technology, communication technology of the property of the board, and are returned at the end of the trustee's term of office. Page, it says 9 of 16 on that's it right there.
That's the correct paragraph at the top of that page right there. Superintendent Dan, please.
Thank you. Through your, I'll try to address this. I think it's with regard to people who are done their term and finishing with the board. It's not for people who are returning, because in that case, it's a rotation of devices, but I can certainly check.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, so there is a recommendation in the report that the Business and Facilities Standing Committee recommend that the board approve the revisions to policy 2115 trustee expenditures as set on Appendix C of report number BFD4, revision to policy 2115 trustee expenditures dated February 4th, 2015. Sir Mover? Trustee Aiken, seconded by Trustee Schilling. Any questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that carries. Okay, takes us to item number 5, revision to policy 2140, electronic meetings. Superintendent Dance, please.
Thank you, and through your chair, I believe this was an instance where a policy review was brought forward by the changes in some of the provision of the technology that was highlighted by you in a previous meeting. Certainly the changes that are highlighted here in the red line version are best represent where we are with regard to not so much BlackBerries now, but certainly the availability of participation in our meetings using board-issued smartphones because they have encryption in them. That is a security measure that our manager of Information Technology Services, Greg Elliott, and his staff have investigated, and they believe that where before there was I believe an insistence around a landline, a secure connection. Now we believe that the encryption that's available on cellular devices will enable us to use those. You can see that it is also highlighted in the red. It is recommended trustees use their board-issued smartphones for closed sessions. And that is because of encryption. As far as public sessions, it would be a public situation in any case.
Okay, Trustee Armstrong, please.
No, sorry.
No, sorry.
Just waiting on the.
Okay, Trustee Chandler, please.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. To Superintendent Jeffs. So I understand we can come to a meeting electronically. How does it work if you're out of Canada and you want to be part of an electronic meeting? Can you use this phone? No. How does that work?
Superintendent,
Just some clarity on that. Thank you.
Through the chair, I believe it would have to be, in order to take part in meetings from outside, you need to have permission to purchase the roaming packages that are available and then to use them for that purpose. It is one of those situations that's an evolving aspect of the relationships. It's one that certainly the ITS department is looking forward to as we move into the next opportunity to renew our packages for cellular devices, which is coming up in April, and we'll be highlighting because we know that more and more people cross the border for different reasons, and roaming, for example, in the United States is infinitely more affordable than it used to be. So it's application to have a roaming package, and then it would be the same stipulation because of whether you're joining us from Tucson, Arizona, or you're joining us from New York, as long as it was on the board encrypted itself. Director Waltz says $50 a month. $15 a month. 50?
I'll see you back here, just an example, when you go to purchase roaming charges, You purchase them on a monthly basis, so you can't purchase them just for a day or whatever. But just an example, to purchase them throughout the states, right now in the United States, it's $50 for the month to have those charges added. So it's not a large cost. If you go much further, you try to go to an island or somewhere like that, the cost goes up quite a bit. So, but it is certainly something that we, if it was a board meeting, very important issues that you needed to be part of or to be seen as voting on, et cetera, and absolutely, you'd work it through us and we would make sure that that would happen for you.
Okay, follow up to that, Trustee Tanner?
Just follow up through the chair. So then it would be better to use a landline and then you pay the cost of using your own landline when you're out of the country? Just asking,
I think it would depend on through the chair, I believe it would depend on the situation that you're in and where it's most secure. So you err on the side of most secure.
Okay, Trustee Akins, please.
Thank you, through the chair. What about options for, can we attend a meeting electronically through Wi-Fi? Because if Wi-Fi is free, is there an option to Skype too as well for meetings? Or does it have to be strictly through conference and roaming data?
Superintendent Dan, please.
Thank you, and through you, Chair White, at this point, we're suggesting that through the encryption of the cell phone and not through Skype. Skype is not secure. I was on a Skype call yesterday with a candidate for an eligibility list, and it was, I thought it was going through to Saudi Arabia, and then when I spoke to the person, it was in Boston. So you don't know a lot of the details through that, and it's certainly one that it's something we will continue to explore through the ITS department, but it's also one that certainly the imperative for us in this review was to bring it forward so that we can have it in place for this group of trustees as soon as possible. But we are exploring other opportunities, whether it's video conferencing and other aspects as we move forward.
The board, I would say too, the board meetings are live streamed, so I have called in by phone and been able to watch the meeting. I just have to turn the sound off because there is a slight delay there. It's more still and stuff, but it doesn't, you can do it that way. Here to follow?
Yeah. Thank you, through the chair. What if it's like a public meeting? If you are not doing that through a closed session meeting, but in public knowledge?
Through the chair, public session, we would not put any recommendations or restrictions on which form of communication you would use, simply because closed session items are confidential and public session items would be open in any case.
Thank you.
Trustee Law, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, I actually would like to thank you for bringing this up. It wasn't an issue for me until about a month or so ago, when I had to leave my comfortable house where I have no landline and hole myself up in my sister's bedroom to avoid 2 dogs, a cat, 4 people, and a really crappy landline. And it's difficult to hear, so I'm very happy that I can use my phone now for closed meetings, so that would be great.
Trustee Clements, please. Sorry, did you want to speak on this issue? Okay, thanks, sorry. Trustee Armstrong, sorry, maybe that's his hand, so.
Just want to clarify, also about the ability of using your cell phone or your phones, because I haven't done electronic meetings for some time. And I guess this is the only method through the mic that people can hear, because that was a huge issue, straining to hear what's happening in the meeting. In fact, it would be 3 hours of just, like you just felt if you had any other background noise in your area, you would not hear what's going on the phone. And so I don't know, and I realize it's aside from policy, but is there any way to improve the situation? I don't know if it's your mics or whatever, but it's very, no experience I've had is incredibly difficult to concentrate when you can barely hear, you can hear echoing and problems. So, and that room downstairs is cavernous, so I don't know if there's a better method. So it's more of a comment that, is it going to get better? Maybe cell phones will get better. The second thing, on that technical part, is I have also done electronic meeting with another trustee who also called in, and Lena was kind enough to hear her voice saying, okay, you're connected, Donna, and so you're connected. Well, we started to have a conversation, not knowing that we're being mic'd out to the whole room. And the conversation was, where are you? Well, I'm at a school council meeting, where are you? And so we started chatting, and finally I hear some voice material, Donna, so we can hear you. So it'd be nice to know if that's, while you're waiting for the meeting to start, are you live? Can people hear your voice? Because I'm so grateful we were talking about school business. It could have been easily something very different. So we should know that too, especially if you get coordinated. I guess when you're by yourself, you're not going to start talking to yourself. But if you happen to be on an electronic call, is that still true?
Superintendent Davis, please.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Lloyd, I believe I'll answer the second question first. I don't believe the system's changed, so it's probably as soon as you're connected, then you would be live. With regard to exploration of other systems, we certainly tasked ITS to explore other systems, not necessarily with regard to this room, but certainly with regard to the Roy Edwards room. And we believe that Superintendent Justin and I will be making a field trip next door to the county building to see their system, because we understand that it is one, wireless, and two, secure, and also it has a variety of different features that we see it being where we need to go.
Okay, thank you. I've exhausted my speakers list, so there is a recommendation in this report that the Business and Facilities Standing Committee recommended the board approve the revisions to policy 2140, electronic meetings as set out in Appendix C of report number BFD5, revision to policy 2140, electronic meetings dated February the 4th, 2015. Is there a mover? Trustee Cameron, please, a seconder. Trustee Aikens. All those in favor? Opposed? And that carries. That concludes the items for decision. That moves us into items for information. So the first item tonight is contract awards within approved budget. Superintendent Just, please.
Thank you, Chair Lloyd, through you. What you have before you tonight is awarding of contracts that are done within approved budget. And I think this is the first time this report has come to the table since the municipal election. So I'll take just a minute to give some background and give the new trustees at the table some understanding. So in accordance with our APM, our administrative procedure 2500 on purchasing, when we award a contract for the purchase of goods or services in excess of $100,000, we do have to come back to the table to get approval if that bid for that contract exceeds the amount we set aside in the budget for the contract. And when the bid is within the board approved budget, then what we do is we come to the table with a report. So if the contract bid exceeds the budget that was originally assigned, we have to come and be a decision item at this table. In the event that it's done within the approved budget, then it just comes to the table as a information item as we have tonight. Normally, there are items typically every month that come to BNF as part of this report. Typically, you'll see them around tendered items and those sorts of things. A lot of them have to do with facility projects we've undertaken, new roofing projects, other additions, renovations, whatever. This one's a little bit unique because we actually, and let me just step back for a second. So normally what you see when you look at the appendice would be the names of the companies that bid and their bid price. And under the tender portion, we're required to accept the lowest tender bid. This one's a little bit unique because it was actually a request for proposal. And so what you see are two scores, one's 84.2 and one's 60.1, and those are the scores off the evaluation matrix that the group that evaluated this RFP, those are the two scores they came up with. And then a portion of the scoring has to do with the cost that's submitted by the proponent. And then there's other factors as well that go into the RFP evaluation. So this one, it's the first one, it's great, but it's also a little bit unique because it's not just purely based on price. And so this was a request for proposal on our Linnell Guard access control system. And what that is that's actually the security system. Mr. Dance is holding up his badge because I don't have mine on me tonight. But, it's the system that controls all our facilities, automatic entry into the buildings and those sorts of things. So hopefully that gives you a bit of background on this report. I see them on a regular basis at Business and Facilities Committee meetings. Often there's more than one at any given time in any given month. And as I say, this is a little bit unique, but I'd be happy to take any questions.
Trustee Akins, please.
Thank you, and through the chair. On the very first page in the report, it says that purchase of goods and services over $100,000. Is there a maximum cap on that, or is it just anything over $100,000?
Superintendent Jeff, please.
Through the chair, there isn't a maximum on that, so you'll see projects come through in the multi-millions. The reason it's 100,000 is because it ties to the broader Public Sector Accountability Act that requires us, anything over $100,000, we have to go out for bid on, formal bid process or RFP. So it's a minimum 100,000, and then anything over that, and that is in excess of the original budget that was set aside. We have to come here for approval.
Okay, any other questions with respect to this? They do come on a pretty frequent basis, and so you will see them on a regular basis. Okay, thank you very much. That takes us to item for information number 2, which is 2015-2016 draft budget timelines, and that's Superintendent Jeff, please.
Thank you. Through you, Chair White. What you have before you tonight are the draft budget timelines for the 2015-2016 budget. And if you look at the actual schedule, you'll see that I began the process on December 3rd, 4th, and 5th with our principals at a regional principal meeting here at the board office, and sought their input into the 2015-2016 budget. That's a fairly regular event that I do with the region, or with the principals at the regional meeting in December. So I asked them to, I get their voice in terms of where they'd like to see additional investments into the system. And then we're here tonight talking about the draft budget timelines. What will happen is starting next Monday, well, at some point next week, my department will be cutting the budget. We're in the process of doing that now and distributing it to the respective superintendents. Give them to the end of the month to provide back with their work with respect to their budgets. And I'll be here in March talking about, we'll do some preliminary work in March with respect to budget at the BNF meeting, and then March 9th we'll be at Special Education Advisory Committee talking to them about their 15-16 budget and where we see things going. On April 15th, there's a plan for SEAC, the Special Education Advisory Committee, and this committee, Business and Facilities, to get together under the Ed Act. The Special Education Advisory Committee has to have an opportunity at least once a year to meet with the board to have conversations about budget and those sorts of other activities they'd like to discuss. So we afford them that opportunity on April 15th. In the past, what we've done is we've done a special meeting of SEAC and Business and Facilities. Then we excuse the members of the SEAC committee, and we typically go into a closed session of Business and Facilities to deal with staffing and budget matters related to staffing. And for those who don't know, our staff costs amount to about 85% of the total operating budget. And then typically, so we try to get through that on the night of April 15th. On May 6th at BNF, we're back at the table and do all the non-salary and benefit components of the budget. and hopefully get a recommendation for approval for the 2015-2016 budget at that point in time. And the past couple of years, we've been.
I know that. So, thank you. Trustee Armstrong?
For that, I just wonder if the timeframe of the response, I think it's 13th of February, it's a little tight, I think. I'm not of an opinion that we should be doing this or not doing it, but I think when you have something like that, that's I think you need probably at least a month or whatever. So as far as what information to put on a website or questions or whatever, I think communications wise is a very positive thing. But the design of it maybe, or what the type of questions are, difficult to, I looked at it and I'm thinking, it's homework, like especially the message you want to give to your constituents. It's like, okay, I feel like a Twitter feed, like, oh gosh, every time I go to try to do a Twitter, it's like, I'm always rejected, and it's like 144 characters, 144, like, so it's a difficult task, and you want to edit it. I don't think it's something that you want a draft, the first draft, to send, so just the time frame is an issue for me.
Trustee, Chandler and De Silva, sorry.
Through you, the chair, I did ask that when we submitted our answers, whether we'd get a chance to look at it and revise it and move it forward. So that is good. So they're going to let us see, sort of, I guess, they're picking some of the questions to give forward, but we can look at it and revise it. But I liked it. I thought it was an opportunity to tell a little bit about yourself and, to keep your answers really short. It didn't take that long. But I just like the idea of being able to give a message to my constituents.
Trustee De Silva?
Yes, and through you, Madam Chair. I do share concerns, like yourself. I was kind of taken aback because we didn't know anything about it. And yeah, so and the timeline is too short for me, way too short. So yeah, I do have some concerns. I think it's a great opportunity, but I just sort of like to have known ahead of time and then maybe, had a longer time frame. All right?
Okay. I think maybe I personally felt that we needed to have sort of consensus among the group as what we thought was relevant and what we needed, thought was important to be included there. And so, I don't know if anyone has a suggestion on how we can go forward, or if we, maybe Director Wallace, you have any suggestions on how, I expressed my concerns to you about it, and you knew sort of where I was coming from on it, and how we best handle it.
Through you, Madam Chair, when we spoke earlier on, I indicated that the intent from the communications department was to support and to help, not to maintain the website, but was to help, because we recognize that individuals come from varying backgrounds, and it was intended just to help and to probably establish to some degree a certain consistency. Because currently we're looking at websites for all of our schools, and for those of you who may not know, in the past we've had websites that have varied, and they vary because of the abilities of the individuals at those certain schools. And so some were pretty glitzy because they happened to have someone that was really capable, they were lucky, and others were really struggling to get something that looked great, and that certainly was something we wanted. So that's something that communications has been working on. So this was just an attempt to support and to help individuals go forward. So I thought about our conversation earlier on, and I'm wondering whether there might be two or three trustees who would consider volunteering their time to come in and perhaps sit down with our communications department, one or two of them, to sit around and talk about, well, what would be a good way to go about getting information. And that could be put together in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and we could send that out. Bring it back, and with a consideration that this is what it could look like. was never intended to give you more work. It was supposed to help you not have as much work, so I apologize if it created that. It was never intended to be enforced, that if people did not want to do it, they didn't have to do it. But I know we're all A-types and we all want to make sure we do everything we're being asked. So, my suggestion might be is if there was 2 or 3 of you that would like to would give up a little bit of time to come in and you would give us your perspective. And I think that would be extremely important, that they hear that perspective so that they could look at those questions and look at, or not questions, maybe a profile. I know you gave one when you ran to be a trustee, whether we could look at that as well. But thinking about that, and then we bring it back to you and go forward in a way that's supportive, but not in a way that we are telling you what to do, or our intent is not to maintain it either. It was just a starting point to help all of you. So I really apologize. I created a problem, but it really. So if there were, could I suggest that perhaps 2 or 3 of you might volunteer, and then we can bring it back? That to me might be the simplest way, so we get your voice into what you're doing.
Well, I volunteer since I'm the one who caused the problem and brought it up, so I have no problem doing that, and I volunteer. Just like, is there anyone else who'd like to meet with us just to try and, okay, just watch it? Okay, so that's 3, is that what you're looking for, Director Wallace?
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you very much, and I would have our manager of communications with Lisa. So she and Missy, who is our web guru, I would ask her to join you, so you have a group of 5 to create what you think might look good, and then bring it back to the table.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Armstrong, please.
Just further to that, please, to relay to communications, it's a great idea, and not to be, certainly not, I didn't feel anything negative from it or whatever, I certainly wouldn't want them to be discouraged about our, the service response, that's all, and I'm sure you'll relay that too, but I don't know if anybody else is negative, but I thought, oh, wow, like, this is really a, an active thing, it's sort of the start of a term, this is the time to do these things, so wonderful, that they're ahead of the curve.
Any other comments? Okay, great. Seeing none, we move into notices of motion for next meeting with Trustee Clements.
I have 2 of them. The first one is that classes at Barrie Central continue until such time as the new school, namely South Barrie Secondary School, is ready for the students.
So that's the first motion. Do you want to read both of them or just the first one?
Do you want to count both?
Okay, do you have a seconder for that motion? Okay, Trustee Aikens? And you can read the next one.
Okay, next one. That the sale of Barrie Central would put on hold until there are no longer any students attending class at the school.
Okay, all we can do tonight is accept the motions, whether they're in order or not, or would be determined, I believe. I don't know if this is notice of motion, if we determine whether they're in order tonight. I think we just accept them and then it would be reviewed at the beginning of the next meeting. Thanks. Is there a seconder for that one? Trustee Aikens? All right, any other notices of motion? And at this point, I have a motion to adjourn.